Hey, good morning and happy Friday,
Yes.
March 8th, 2024. Thanks for joining us on the Dev Talk Show. I'm Chris Gomez along with Rich Ross.
Hey, Chris.
And yeah, this week went fast. So,
It was good though. It was a busy week, but it's the end of the work week, and we're gonna do hopefully do some fun code here.
yeah, I think so. Yesterday we were working on building. Oh, look, we have our guest. We have a guest. We have my dog who decides sometimes sits in the frame, but actually not very often.
No,
But today has decided
at least while we're on
that's
full screen with us side by
where you
side.
want to be, huh? Uh-oh.
You may have.
Live production. What can you do, right?
That's it.
Especially without like a producer to say dogs on set. So, in any case, yesterday we were working on an app that I guess this is your name for it, HelloDallE, right? And Dolly,
I
is it
was
not
being
your name?
silly. Yeah, it
Oh,
was my name. Yeah, it's the project. You're right. So project names are always cooler than the real name. So that was the
right. And Dolly, I think I'm correct in saying, is a text to image model by
yes,
OpenAI. Just like,
yes.
and again, I don't know that I have all the terminology yet because all of this generative these generative systems and models are kind of new, and as a
Hmm.
developer we're learning from the beginning too. So like chat gpt is an example of a like a natural language. I don't know if I'd call that the model. That there's large language models, and then this is a text to image model, but in some respects we're using, you showed yesterday in yesterday's show that we're using a little bit of both
Yeah,
to get from a prompt, uh, uh, your app, you take some words as descriptors, maybe your mood, maybe a color, maybe some other descriptors that you might add later. That's going to get turned into a prompt, and then that's going to get turned into an image, and all hosted in a Blazor app. So it's really bringing a lot of stuff together.
yeah, definitely. And I think
Uh-oh. I wonder if you hung up, if I hung up. But see that there? Hard to say. Let me see if I can figure out if it looks like I'm not the one frozen. So what I'll do is go to full screen until we figure out what happened there with Rich. Oddly enough, only one of the screens is frozen. It does look like you're on, Rich. Just that the screen that you were talking on is frozen, but the other view that I have of you, I can see you moving around. So in any case, we'll see what happens there. Yeah, so yesterday, if you watch the show, you'll see we did a little bit with the we did a little bit in code, and then we were running out of time, and it didn't seem likely that we were going to be able to implement the rest of it in the Blazor app. So we went straight out to the Azure Open API service and the Azure uh, uh, AI Studio might be the name of the product. Um, and Rich deployed some models, a predictive model with the GPT model that's predictive, that basically took these descriptor words. For example, let's say the mood was happy and the color was blue. In fact, I think in this case, it might have been the mood was happy and the color was red. And then I think he might have added in winter or something like that. And it created a prompt suitable for Dolly. And that prompt was to say uh, that to create an image of a snowman uh, drawing with a red crayon, I believe. And sure enough, that's what Dolly did, ran that a couple times. And so um, that at least showed that we can do this. We, even though we were doing that in the portal in Studio, we showed we can do this. Now the trick is going and getting it implemented in Blazor. And the Rich is back. We
I
hope.
don't know what happened.
Yeah, he just
New
froze out all of
hardware.
a sudden there. Hopefully my
Yeah,
description was okay. I don't know if you could hear any of that.
I did not. I was troubleshooting, but I'm sure it was
Okay.
spot on. So,
Yeah. I kind of went through what we did and how
yeah.
we were implementing into Blazor, working with Blazor, working with components, and working with
Hmm.
how these components when their state was changing, that was being passed as an event up to I don't want to necessarily call it a parent component, but another component that was responsible for saying, now I know when you click the submit button, I know how to call out to these services. But we were running out of time, so we just went ahead and used the services on the portal just because I think you wanted to tie it all together. Like, here's where we're heading.
Show the vision of where we're going, right? So take that away from being that manual bit we did yesterday, which was pretty cool. We got some interesting images out of it just by throwing a rough prompt up there, and that's something else that we can refine over time as well and say, okay, how do we make the prompt stronger? Because we just kind of wrote it on the fly. The other part of it is that's really cool when we think about the AI components is everything doesn't have to point to one OpenAI large language model, right? I could use one model like we did with the GPT 3.5 Turbo Instruct to do the completion, and then use a separate model to do the image bit and kind of chain those things together. And that foundation is what we're going to put into the project today, right? So we're going to start to wire up the connections to OpenAI, but we're going to use an SDK created. It's open source, but it's created from some teams at Microsoft that are that's called Semantic Kernel. And what that does is essentially, I probably can share my screen because there's a GitHub repo of this out here.
All right, we'll get that moving. And I
gotta.
I think that's how it freezes you. Whatever you just did there. Because I can still hear you. I can still hear you, but and in fact, like, see, there you are.
It's trying to come back. Well, that's the other one.
I know it is. But anyways, so while the other monitor's frozen there, and I'm not sure what seems to set that off. But we still have Rich, right? He's still live. I don't know if you want me to pull you off this monitor or not.
Yeah, because I want to do the other. It's actually in my ear.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, a little bit of a technical difficulty as we are live, and a show without a producer, and hopefully the hardware all holds up. And right now it's fighting us a little bit, but I know Rich is trying to get back on stage here and also show his system where let me see. I actually I don't know that I have the latest code because I could always bring that up, but while we're waiting, let me see if I can get that going. Whoops, it's not what I meant to do there at all. Okay, let's see if I can get that going. And all right, so now you see this is actually my system here, and I'm sitting here in PowerShell inside Windows Terminal and a prompt extension I like to use called Oh My Posh, which apparently has an update, which is fine. I will update another time. The nice thing about Oh My Posh is I get it through Winget, so you can see it's already trying to tell me how to update it, but I'm not going to do that right now. So I know that there is a GitHub repo for this, which I don't believe I actually have on my system. So if I clone that down, then I now have it, which is great. And it's one of the nice things how the world's evolved here to just let me go and grab code, even if Rich isn't here to help me out. Now he's back in. Let me see. Do you want me to bring you back in here? Looks like maybe you're okay. Possibly. You are back on stage.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So, yeah, we're playing around with some new hardware, and that caused some things to crash. So I am bypassing those things.
Okay.
And just basically taking my camera feed straight out of straight as it comes into the box. So we should be good now.
All right.
I hope.
Yeah. And so anyways, we were switching over to your screen, right? Which we can do.
Yeah. All right. We'll see if that happens. Let's see. Settings, present. Screen share. Do a window. Do this one. Share.
All right.
So far, so good, right? Cool. All right. That looks like it's working. Oh, there you go. You've got the good screen going. Okay. So this
Slightly
is
larger.
Slightly larger, exactly, as designed. So this is what we're going to build or use to connect our OpenAI service that we set up yesterday and share that out through our application that we're building. So what's great about this is it's an SDK, but it gives you the ability to use, the language that you're interested in, whether it's C# or Java, or I think that in the last month or so they just released a Python version of this because people were asking for it. But it also abstracts away the connections to those back-end LLM services. So if you want to use Azure OpenAI, great. If you want to use the company OpenAI, their service directly, you can do that too, or Hugging Face or other ones as they continue to come online. You've got the ability to essentially bring any one of those services into your application, essentially writing it once this way and then being able to, by using different connectors, bring in the right service for the right thing that you're calling. So that's what this essentially provides. There's some great getting started here. So whether you're using C#, Python, or Java, and then there's a very kind of getting started app, console app that you can use to get up and running. So we're not going to do any of that. We're actually going to go right into our project and start putting the pieces together to make all this happen. So this is the GitHub repo. This here is the documentation around it. So there's some great getting started. And then kind of where we're going to focus is in this section here around prompt engineering, because what we're doing is we want to put together the prompt like we did yesterday, send it off to Azure OpenAI, and then be able to use that to get back a complete prompt that is the what will then pass to DALL-E. And all that. If you saw yesterday, all that makes sense. If not, hopefully before the end of the day today, we get to show most of that.
Yeah, I have to admit that even we had talked about this project offline, and it wasn't until I think we went in and you showed how we were going to take these little descriptions and turn them into a full-blown prompt and then put that into DALL-E for an image. That's when I was kind of like, oh.
I get it now. Yeah, no, it's and that's another reason for building this out, because then people start to see that, oh, we can incorporate all these things together and make something really cool happen. So let's start going down through the process of getting our system wired up with basically getting it wired up so it can talk to OpenAI, essentially, which is what we want to do. We're going to need to, and I probably have to go dark on this when we do it, but for right now,
so you're using the ASP.NET user secrets feature here, so that you don't have to put this stuff either into source control or just any place where, especially since this project is on GitHub, right? So you certainly don't. So if you need me to pull away here as you're filling out, I'm letting you fill it out.
Yep, I'm not going to put the values in, but I'm just kind of showing.
I do like.
Go ahead.
I'm curious how close the completion suggestions here are to what you're actually going to do. And so again, we've used secrets JSON on the show before. If you're an ASP.NET developer and you're not aware of it, this is not a Visual Studio feature. You saw him right click on the project file and say manage user secrets. And yes, that is the easy button for getting a user secrets.json file, not just referred to in your project, but also created for you to save this stuff. But this is available. You can create this from the .NET CLI. It doesn't matter what your IDE is. Doesn't matter what your editor is. Doesn't matter if it's NeoVim. This is a feature of .NET. It is not a Visual Studio feature.
Yep.
And now, so what you're doing is you're putting in settings for an Azure OpenAI settings, kind of like a parent object. And there's a resource name and an API key that we need for this. And I can see on the right, you've already got an interface kind of ready to go.
Yeah.
Just the implementation now of picking this stuff up, right?
Yep. So we should be able to load on, hopefully, this should be in the programs file, I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Yep. So we actually have our add user secrets, and it's coming from AI settings.
Yes.
And we can bring that in. Okay. There are probably going to be a couple more that we have to add to our secrets.json, but I think, because I think Semantic Kernel asks for a couple of other things, and that's kind of where start putting these pieces together. I want to get things wired up when it comes to the Semantic Kernel part, so that we can then come back and get to and then have all those values in there. So that's kind of where my head is around doing that. So let's add a
So one thing that I noticed,
mm-hmm.
you're using add user secrets of T, which maybe I could also call like the generic version of add user secrets. Now, that feels to me like you are combining a feature of settings, which is POCOs or objects, as your target for the settings to be dropped into, along with add user secrets. So when you added user secrets to the app, did you go and add line 15 yourself after?
Yes.
Okay. That's fair enough, because I believe you can say manage user secrets in Visual Studio, or create the secrets file and wire it up in your project in, separately. And you don't actually have to add it to configuration, because it's already in configuration by default. But what you're doing, you're going one step further, and you're saying, I'm telling you that you can go get this stuff out of a plain old object.
Yes.
Okay, cool. That's neat.
That's
I've never done that before. That's cool.
Right. So we, yes. And then by getting them, we get the, we can put the hierarchy in there for, well, this is, our OpenAI settings. And if we have another higher level group, we could set up a different class that does the same thing.
Yep.
Okay. So this is the part where I'll be honest, I've done this, once a little while ago. So we're going to kind of take our time and walk through wiring this this component up. So and let's see. Well, I think the first thing we have to do is, which we didn't do yet in tools. Cool. And I always forget what the name of those are. So it is, you can always go out to there we go. Microsoft Semantic Kernel Core, or Microsoft Semantic Kernel. Yeah, just use that one.
I caught a glimpse of some of the multi-targeting there. It looks like there's .NET Standard support and also .NET Framework support.
Yes, which is kind of interesting when you think about it, to be able to have a version that goes back and talks to framework, which is pretty awesome. So we can actually make some of those older applications, that still exist and are still probably part of your business, give them some intelligence as well.
Right. No, every day I talk to customers that still have mission critical framework apps. They're still supported as long as there's a list of versions that are still supported, and it's mostly the very latest and then a few somewhat obscure older ones that go very far back in time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a horrible list, and it shouldn't be too hard to take your framework app and make it, at least to bring it up to date with most current standards. There's some edge cases where I think some developers feel a little stuck, but most people should be able to, if for some reason you have to stay on framework,
right,
you should be okay. Which there are use cases. I do see them.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Those are things that can't get around it. It's great. It's working. Let's not mess with it. So
yeah. Or maybe the device that we're using, the company that made it, I don't know, maybe they don't exist anymore.
Right.
And so there is no update coming for the SDK. Something like that. Who knows, right? It's all right.
So
we
what
have,
I'm doing here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So what I'm doing here is, I already got some IntelliSense around Semantic Kernel, so it brings in that using statement. So we're going to create basically a kernel object inside of our class here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make that equal to create builder. So the kernel object is essentially the object you use to communicate with your other, to basically communicate with whichever API or LLM service you're connecting to. So it's kind of like the putting together, like we do in the program file, we put together all the services and things that need to go into the build object there. We're doing something very similar here. So we can do create builder, and then off of here, we're going to do a dot add Azure OpenAI. We don't want text generation. We actually want to do the chat completion capability, right? Because that was what we were doing yesterday, or last time, essentially, I think. Let me just double check that. Sorry. Pretty sure that's what we want to do. Okay, that's what we're going to start with, because I'm pretty sure that's what we need to, where we need to be. And then this needs some items in there to essentially make it work. So we need to be able to point to either some kind of a configuration object, or we basically pass in things that set up the object. So we set up something like deployment name. So remember from the session we did yesterday that we had to create model deployments, and then we named them when we did that. So we're basically explicitly telling this service, when you go ahead and connect to this specific deployment, because you could have multiple GPT-3.5 turbos deployed, essentially, each with different names, so they all get kind of for resource leveling, right? Our applications are hitting this one, yours are hitting the other one, that kind of thing.
Okay.
We also need a endpoint, so that is so that's essentially the URL that we're pointing to get to to our service. So now that we know now that we have the endpoint to the service and we know the deployment model or the deployment name that we're using, we also need our API key. And then once we have all that, we can essentially build it, and then we're done. Now, this is the part that to do this the right way, right? This is where we do that dependency injection bit from our I configuration, right? So we have I configuration. And I know we've talked about that before, about being able to essentially, because in our program file, we already have or will have the configuration values inside of there to communicate with our service. So we can, because they're created at startup here, we can then use them to inject them at runtime into our class with all the values kind of pre-populated for us. So we don't have to go and talk to the configuration service every time. It's already kind of been done for us, essentially, if that makes sense.
I think so.
Unless I have it totally wrong. And maybe and this is, maybe it's not here because we don't have to bring that up. Well, we probably should. That should be fine, because we should be able to go back to these settings and add the pieces that we're missing. So this is actually going to be deployment name. We got that there and there, and then we also need we got the API key. We need our endpoint URL, our endpoint essentially. So let's do. Oh, that was so helpful. Okay, cool. All right, so all of that basically comes across. So we're good there. We've got all three of those pieces. Yeah, that would be. Yeah, but it's really not. It's actually. See, this is the stuff that probably should have put in place ahead of time, because that's the stuff that always takes forever.
The setup and the config.
Yeah. And I'm happy if you have other suggestions about how you do this. I'm happy to hear your thoughts around that.
No, I'm new to the semantic kernel here, and I was looking at some of their some of the code, and what you're doing right now is you double checking back and forth, like you're adding OpenAI chat completion, which takes a model, an endpoint, and an API key.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it doesn't actually take those as objects, right? They're strings where you're basically telling it, hey, here's the model name, here's the endpoint, here's the API key, and then OpenAI chat completion is another one in this sample, which I'm not saying that's what you're using. Just I'm just looking at how these different samples go.
Right.
Now, do you need? Okay, I keep waiting for when you need me to pull it off the screen.
Yeah, why don't we because with just these 3 values I should be fine. I can basically then close this up and not see it anymore, and then everything else can happen in the class.
Okay.
That was what I was hoping to get to. So what I am doing is I'm going back into my AI studio from yesterday. I'm going to the same project, and I'm going to go and...
So when you're in AI Studio and you create one of these, well, is the API key at the deployment level? Meaning like there's one per deployment, or no, so it's a little bit even higher level than that, like...
Yeah, so for the
Okay.
service itself,
Okay.
there's an endpoint, so the URL that we can hit to get to it, and then there's a key that we have to include every time we make a communication into that.
Yep.
And that happens at the service level. So once we have it defined, every deployment would have the same information. So we could have multiple deployment names inside or a separate section that's all of our Azure OpenAI deployment names, but then it brings in the settings from Azure OpenAI service to reuse every time we wire up a semantic kernel instance. So yeah, we might think about changing that up a little bit. But let's see. So I'm gonna...
Well, we being not you. When you say we think we might change that up a bit, that's not...
Oh, that's something, it's my project. So it's something I think probably, if you think about redefining the...
Oh, okay. I understand.
The way that...
Because what I was trying to get to, while you were working, I didn't mean to interrupt, because I said, I was just thinking in my head, I said, okay, so when I think about the Twitch developer experience, you go in and you create an application, which is just a fancy way of saying, listen, I want a client ID and I want a client secret to talk to the API, but I might want to segment those and say, hey, I want one for this app and I want one for this app, and I'll make slight tweaks to the different permissions that they have. And so I was just wondering, if in this case, is this API key for your whole access to the service of the OpenAI service and all the deployments underneath it, or is it like a per? And sometimes those things evolve over time too with different services, right, as you kind of begin to see how people use them. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But
all right. So
all those secrets are getting dropped in there.
All right. One last one. Paste.
And I suppose, unlike some of the other demos, even while we're sitting here working, somebody could grab those keys and run up a nice AI generation bill, right?
Doesn't take long. Yeah. Yeah. That would be very bad if that happened.
Yeah.
Although I think now that if we still have, cool. So I think even if we, no, it's not that smart. It's not seeing those. Okay, interesting. Okay. All right, so we've got that. We've got a deployment name. We've got those pieces in there. All right, let's go back to the project. And we're fine if you want to bring my screen back up.
I just want to make sure that, because I can't really tell, so I want to make sure that the secrets file is closed and we're good. And
now.
here, And here we go. At least I think so. There we are. All right.
Awesome. All right. So, and this is where I may need a little bit of your help, because what we're doing here is really just .NET stuff.
Mhm.
We should be able to load essentially those Azure OpenAI settings from the from our application and bring those settings into our bring those settings into the configuration, and then I should be able to reference them via the configuration dependency injection. I should be able to reference them here and use them for my application.
Yeah, if you have a class, so what you're saying is you have a class definition that essentially matches the JSON that you expect,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So I'm trying to think of, there's a way to do this where you I'm thinking I mean, you can do it manually, which I don't think is the whole point. I think the point
Right.
is you're saying you want to bring it in and
Right.
I think
So if I ran this and we did where is our homepage? We sit down here, since we still have our submit prompt up and running. If I just said new what? No, why did you do that? There we go. That probably needs the come on. Oh, well, that's interesting. See, this is the part where I get stuck.
okay.
If I was to do this, that's got to come from somewhere. It's not
Right.
It's not in this class.
And what are we in right now? We're in home.razor. So I suppose you could always you could always use the dependency injection, I think, and have this injected, right?
Right, but why does if the configurations aren't used directly here in the home razor, why do I have to inject them here?
Well, mainly because you newed up a class that takes the configuration, right? Like it's part of the constructor.
Right.
So
I mean, so is there, and then this is the other thing, right? If I got rid of this, I need some way to inject that into this class so that it runs. I think that's kind of where, and maybe, we are going off on a tangent here, but
okay. So I think you can, for now, leave this alone.
okay.
And put and basically, so what's happening is I think your semantic kernel helper is going to be a service. In fact,
Yeah.
you put it in the services folder.
Kind of
So
think of it that way too.
Seems like
Yep.
that's where you're going. So I think that you could say that semantic kernel helper is something you new up that takes configuration. We could always look at that later. So I think the way you had it was fine. The problem is now what you want to do is do you want a kernel per do you want a kernel per user? Like, is it scoped?
It's not scoped. It's more, it's going to come and go depending on what's being called, right? This one particular instance to start off with is going to have a kernel that knows how to talk to chat completion. I'm going to have another one that's going to talk to the image service. So that's got to be wired up differently. So I'm going to, potentially
I'm just
have
trying to figure out
Yep.
if the helper's going to maintain any state, or if when you make calls to it, those calls are stateless. And it's okay if it's a singleton. So
yep.
The point is that
I wouldn't make it a singleton, because then it would be there across everybody's.
Yeah, it just depends on if there's any state from call to call, I think. But the point is, I guess, is that I think what you want to do is, let's see, we already have it as a service. So you're going to want to go, let's see, back up to program.cs and add it as a service and say like builder.services and add this to dependency injection, right? So, So you're going to want to, Oh, look, it's even trying to help you.
Well, that's the OpenAI one. Add.
You're right. Semantic kernel is the one you're doing. Right. And it's when somebody wants an iSemantic kernel helper. Actually, it doesn't have to be an interface. You're saying when somebody wants a semantic kernel helper.
All right, did I spell this wrong? I did. That's terrible.
Oh, is it spelled wrong in the class? Oh, that's all right. You can fix it.
Yeah, I really butchered that. Naming is hard and spelling is even worse. Let's see. Cool.
Okay.
Okay.
So you have this.
Good stuff. Yep.
And you're going to go back to dependency injection and say, hey, when somebody creates one of these, they, okay. Now, go back to the semantic kernel helper.
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't have access to config yet, right? Or it does?
It does not. That's just
right.
a local variable. So what we're saying is...
Okay, so Yep.
And then we go back to here.
Right.
And save that. Let's go back to this one, and then we wire in something that gives me iConfiguration.
I think you're just going to say builder.configuration, I think. I forget. Because you actually are resolving it here.
Okay. So I know we need to do this because it's part of, and we're going down a path of trying to make sure we extract out, and build things in the right way by injecting our configuration settings at runtime, which is the right way we should be doing this. If I understand the way this goes, this user secrets should create an instance of OpenAI settings that has those values in it. because we have that OpenAI settings class, which is here, with all the appropriate property names that match to the project or the file I can't show you anymore.
Right.
So those, if we run this, we should get essentially this with our configuration values inside of it.
Okay.
It's just we then need to be able to reference this to, we just then need to be able to reference this in the other space. So let's just make sure that's so. Oh, because we don't. It's just a class that we don't new up anywhere. That's why. We should be able to look at the configuration object at the end of this and see that it's there.
Yeah. You just have to be careful because those are the values you're trying to protect everybody from.
Right. All right, let's see. They were too quick for me. All right, redo this. Our app has configuration with 122 sections in it. Okay.
Yeah. So, the default configuration brings in a lot. And the only thing that you got to be careful of is that the values might be in there. So if you're scrolling by them real quick, they certainly may be there. So you also may have to drop in further to see them. So in any case,
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although it does look
I'm
like
just trying to...
it does show you everything there.
Right.
Yeah, maybe drop the screen for a second.
Okay.
So interesting. They are there, but those values don't. Oh, wait a minute. Where's? Yeah. Okay. There is a. It's interesting. There is an OpenAI settings : AOAI endpoint. So they do exist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try one thing, and if that doesn't work, then I think we're going to... All right. You got to go top of the hour, right? So we got to do something.
Yeah, that's right. I do have to go top of the hour today.
All right, let's just do this. we're still good. You see what we're doing here, right?
No, because I just the screen is just really small,
Oh, okay.
so I can't.
Oh, because it's down there.
It's
Got it.
way down there for me. It's way down in the studio. It's really it's not something that I can easily look at.
Okay. I can't show you this, but this is a really cool feature. If you highlight something
Mm-hmm.
and hit quote, it wraps it in a quote.
Oh, if you have text highlighted,
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that.
I did not know that either. That's pretty cool. All right, so if we do this so this now is just going to be, and you can show my screen. I'm good.
Okay.
Endpoint. Okay. Awesome. All right. So I hardwired him into the file. We're not going to check this in, but
Okay.
we'll get past the configuration stuff after. But essentially, we've got a way to kind of kick off the building of the kernel, essentially. So, and then from here we can we do want that to return a string. We want to do really.
What's it complaining
Kernel
about?
doesn't. It's complaining that kernel does not include a method for invoked prompt. What does kernel include? It does.
It's invoke async, I think,
Yeah,
or invoke.
Yep.
Okay. There you go.
Why did Copilot can be immensely helpful and it can be immensely intrusive as well. All right, invoke prompt. Might as well be consistent because that's kind of what we're doing. Oh, because without the function is not a string. Okay. What is coming back? I'm getting a function result. Okay. Now everybody's happy. So this is good. And then so inside of here, we do want to, so the prompt we're going to, so this is really the, trying to think of the right way. So this is the, it's not, response is getting overused here. So users.
This is the string that you build, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
That
That's what we're
string of
passing into
answers.
it.
Right.
Yep. So just to kind of keep straight between all the different responses and things that we're passing around. So this is the actual user answers collection. Right. Because
Okay.
it is, well, not a collection. CSV technically, comma separated values. Okay, and then inside of here, we need to start to create out what our prompt is. So make this private because we don't want to see this. Right, so what we're doing here is we're basically saying that we're going to start to create out our prompt. And there's some structure that Semantic Kernel provides to us to kind of help with that. So let's do this. This is our and this is where we can start to do what we did last time when we manually went through and created it. So this is where we can start to create what is it that we want the AI to do for us.
Okay.
And actually, sorry, this not going to go here. It's going to go here. You'll see why in a second. This should be prompt. Okay. Behind that. All right, you're just seeing a static image of where things are. Give me 1 second. As you might remember, oh, sorry. It's okay. You can't see what I'm doing. I have a trick now so that we could do some of this stuff off screen. Give me back to this. All right, now you can see my screen. And what we're going to do is, essentially what we're doing is we're giving so we're telling it, there are some instructions that you, as the LLM, need to be aware of when you're doing this. So fortunately, I can word wrap so we can see things a little bit better. This is essentially the same prompt that we used from yesterday.
Right.
But the difference is going to be instead of this, we're going to include because the $sign. Sorry.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you got it as an interpolated string. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, we're dropping that inside of there, and then we can see. much like yesterday, this is what we want them to complete and return back to us. Yeah, that looks pretty close. Okay. So let's see. So we should get a prompt, and then we'll get a function result back. And then we shouldn't really return a function result. So let's see what a function result is. Otherwise, the home page has to know about semantic kernel. And right now we're kind of extracting it out, so it doesn't.
Right.
We should be able to return essentially the prompt that is essentially the prompt that got generated. It's just an object, though. It's not really, because an object could be anything. Oh, okay. We could do function result.getValue and send that back.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the value. This or a base type is the type expected to be passed as the generic argument to get value. So get value probably requires a type, right? From the sounds of that. Right, you need to supply a type in there. Oi. All right. But we should be able to pass that in as well. Okay. So then if I understand this right, we're going to this, and then what we're getting is that result. Is that where we were? Get type? No, well, it's the same value type. Sorry. Okay. And then from that, we can get var. Does that really not work? It keeps forcing me away from that.
Yeah, you have to know the type. So you're expecting a string back?
I don't know. It could be anything. I would think it's a string. But I guess what I'm trying to say is this will tell me what the type is.
Yeah, but
And then
I'm not sure you can. I'm not sure you can do that without reflection or something similar to reflection.
Well, that's harsh. All right, let's.
You could always say get value of string, saying that I'm pretty sure we're getting a string.
String. There we go. Value type T. Okay. Okay. We could try that and then invoke prompt function result. don't need this anymore because we're figuring that out later. Okay. Let's do this. Hit this. Okay. All right. Let's try it out. What could go wrong? Yes.
All right, you have your.
Oh, we don't need that anymore. Why is that still there? There we go.
Huh. Interesting.
Sure. Okay, no breakpoints. So
Happy and blue.
Home. Where's home?
Home.razor. Yeah.
There we go. Grab that. All right. Oh, we never call it because we
Because you.
commented out.
Yeah, and now is kernel. What's coming back from there? You semantic kernel helper, which
It's respelled.
okay. And then does that take arguments or no? Oh yeah, that too.
So
Okay,
new,
now
and then
you have to call it, right?
yep, kernel dot invoke. Is that the public one? Wait a minute.
Yeah, you did have one called invoke prompt, or yeah.
This is they're backwards. Boom. All right. Well, well, that's fine. Prompt will be persistent because it's here. It's here as part of the thing, so we can pass that in. So I'll just call both methods for now. Let's save that. And that should give us a response of var. Although we'll probably see it way before then. Sign void to an implicitly typed.
Well, I think because invoke prompt async returns a task, you have to await it, right? I mean, you don't have to, but it's certainly the easier way, which is fine because that was an async method.
Yeah, I did put the wait at the end, but I guess that's not what it needs. Okay.
Okay, and then does invoke prompt async need to? No,
value?
because prompt is okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. Not elegant. This is, we're
Now
doing
you
this
have
on
to
the fly.
take my value. Does that have to go somewhere, or is that automatically going to be picked up by that DALL-E comms?
In the 4 minutes we get left,
Okay.
It will, but right now, no.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Let's try this. Okay. So we got here. This is basically just going to wire up our prompt. And Yep. So it did include those values in there at the end, kind of almost to the edge of the screen there.
Okay.
All right. Let's see what happens. Yeah, we're not. So I guess the.
Interesting.
Yeah, it kind of lost the thread, I think. So we're here.
I wonder if it
Yes.
blew up.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. There were errors. Oh, because of this.
Just say EX equals EX. That's my trick when I just want to see what it does.
Oh.
and then I figure, okay, I'll figure it out later, but at least I can stop here.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's fine. It's not going back, so.
okay.
The check completion operation does not work with the specified model. Choose a different model. Okay.
Huh. Well, at least we know it was something.
Yeah. Well, we also know it connected, right? So we kind of got to the space that we were looking for. I just wired it up with the wrong model. So let's see. Can I do this here? We're gonna have to restart it anyway. So let's. So I can do text embedding, text audio, text to image. We're not there yet. That's interesting. That's new. Text generation. All right. I'm game. Does that. Seems to like it. Dude, we're 1 minute over.
Yeah.
Oh. That's cool.
Okay. A little better. Yeah. It generated your prompt.
Yeah.
Right. And then next time what you would do is pass that prompt to the DALL-E generator.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which means we've got to come in here and wire up a separate. This one's an AI text generation.
Right.
We want to do one that's text to image, essentially. So.
Okay.
Fun.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, no, it generated a prompt. I couldn't quite read what it said, but it said generate a image of a smiling face or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. That doesn't do it.
Because you had happy and blue. So
Yep.
generate an image of a smiling face surrounded by a beautiful blue sky. Okay. All right. Well, definitely it incorporated happy and blue.
We kind of got there.
Yeah.
Bit of a detour, but cool.
No, that's the first time I've ever seen Semantic Kernel. And while you were working, I was trying to pick up what I could from that GitHub repo,
Yeah.
which is interesting because besides having documentation, there's also some .NET Interactive enabled notebooks that I think you
Yeah.
could use to kind of get started and see. Basically you could run these and the code
Mhm.
runs and you can just see what it does. And so it was interesting. I didn't quite follow it too closely, but there's some interesting examples running
There
prompts from a
definitely is.
file. There is a DALL-E sample in there. There's the Chat GPT with DALL-E sample in there. So,
Yeah.
all right.
And some, I'll be honest, some of it I kicked the tires on probably late last year,
Yeah.
and they've continued to pull the documentation together and the examples together. And the notebooks are a really good way to step through and kind of see what's going on. We kind of jumped through quickly here because we had an hour to kind of wire this up. But this actually got farther than I thought, because this prompt component here can become much more complex.
Okay.
And even some of the things I tried previously were much more involved, creating a much greater prompt that had additional values in it and different variables, so that you can kind of shape the response that comes back out of the LLM that you're talking to. So the things we talked about yesterday were temperature and top P and things like that. Being able to inject them as well when you send that prompt in.
So if you hit F10 a couple times, we're going to run by that get value. Because I just want to see what it does. If you hit it, this should get you back out one more time, should get you back out to, okay. And then let's exit and see where we pick it up back in. Okay. Oh, we're not picking it up. Okay. Oh, wait. Yeah, we are. So what you wanted happened. You got your prompt. And then from here, you can move on. What I'm curious about now is I'd like to see you, just before we go, run it again and see how different the prompt is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because this time it was an image of us. I think it said smiling face and a beautiful blue sky. So if we just go click the button again, we should
just
get.
Copy this.
Oh, okay. Surrounded by a beautiful blue sky. All right. So that's what we got the first time.
So if I just F5, we should get back to the page.
Yep. Now that its interactive server components got a little concerned.
Yep.
But okay. Yep. All right.
And we can F5, F5, and now our result is. Although I think, and maybe this is what you wanted to do. I switched the values, and we didn't have to. But
no, I agree.
As you can imagine, it's going to
come back. Generate an image of a cautious green chameleon camouflaged in a tree while keeping a watchful eye on its surroundings. And that's because you said cautious and green, right?
Yeah. And let's see. So I think this is still up and running. Playground. Oh, I'm sorry. Not here. Images. Where did we do this yesterday? Because we did this.
Well, there's no deployment is selected right now.
Oh, there you go. Oh, because that's not. I can't take that. Shoot. There we go. I'm kind of curious what this looks like. That's why I'm trying to. That's pretty interesting.
Well, Yeah, it's neat stuff. It's pretty impressive. So, all right. So the prompts being generated,
Yeah,
that's good.
that's a good thing. I got to work on some configuration stuff, but
Right.
once I nail that down, then we can come back and look at pushing that up into the image, and then what do we do with the image once we get it? So yeah, some fun stuff coming.
All right, cool. All right. Well, hey, everybody watching, thanks for joining us. Hopefully you learned something, and now you know about Semantic Kernel and DALL-E, and we learned a little bit about the OpenAI service. And like everything on the show, sometimes we're just trying stuff out and see where we get. But a lot of people say that helps them understand how you figure out how to do something instead of just being stumped. Because I certainly have been there, where I look at docs, or maybe I don't even know where to begin, and that's can be really frustrating. So we got quite a long way. There's some interesting stuff they do in the semantic kernel there. I really want to explore more. In my opinion, I'm interested in their how they return that function result, which is something I kind of like, because that kind of instead of doing something which I think traditionally programmers did, where if it didn't work, they might return null. I personally tried to get away from that and return something more meaningful with more context, like a result object like that. Not always the easiest thing to promote at work, but maybe if we do more of it here, it might be something you take to your job. So in any case,
definitely.
Yeah. So in any case, and you have the ability to send this out, or is that me?
If you could, I actually can do it now because we're not using the other thing.
Oh, okay.
I can take care of it.
All right. Well, hey, thanks to everybody for joining. If you missed any part of this, it is on YouTube at youtube.com/thedevtalkshow. We have a morning hour playlist with everything that we've been doing in these mornings, just before stand up, which is something I have to run to. So
there you go.
All right. So for Rich, I'm Chris, and thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next time on the Dev Talk Show.